have you all here and coloring with us today, or drawing as well too. So, you created some of the most memorable characters of all time, and you've been part of, I guess, people's imagination, their childhoods, and everything they love. What is it about creating these characters and then seeing them live and go out there to the world to affect people? That really, you know, kind of lets you understand what you're doing and what you're reaching. I'll share what Andreas actually felt too.
Yeah, there are two things that are really satisfying as an animator. First thing is just working on the character, finding the character, working with the voice tracks, and helping to create this personality. But then the second thing is seeing it with a normal audience. And I say normal audience, not non-studio people, regular people with an audience for the first time. That's huge because then you can find out how the character is coming across. And are people laughing or are they afraid at the same moments, at the right moments? That's really satisfying to me.
What's one of the characters for you that you knew was gonna, or maybe a moment you were putting together, you knew this is gonna go out of the park? I mean, was it Scar's singing scene? Was it Roger Rabbit? There's so many different ones where you were like, this is it, guys. No, I'm not taking the notes on this one.
Well, we were half done with Beauty and the Beast, and I did Gaston on that movie. And they had a screening, I think it was in Westwood, and just to see what people might think. Half was in color, half was still in pencil animation. And there were a couple of teenage girls sitting in front of me. And my sequence comes on that I animated where Gaston kind of goes to Belle's house, and he basically is telling her that he's going to marry her and they're going to have children, and he's not even asking her, this is what's going to happen, and being really pompous, and it was all about himself. And one girl leaned over to the other one and said, I dated him last year. And I thought, ooh, something is coming through here. This is going to work.
That's great.
I can remember I had just started at Disney on Beauty and the Beast, and they were already in production. And everything was exciting and new, right? Sounds like a line from a song. But I overheard two animators looking at a scene that they had just finished. And they were complaining, this film isn't going to do anything. It's going nowhere. It's hard on our wrists. I'm thinking, my God, this is so exciting. How could they not be excited, right? And then we're having lunch, and the producer, Don Hahn, comes in. Hey, listen to this song. And he puts the cassette tape in, and it's that beautiful song with Peeble Bryson. I thought, my God, that's amazing. This is going to be incredible. And it was. But as artists, I was listening to them complain, and I thought, how could they ever complain about working at Disney? It was my dream job since I was 12. And so to finally be there and to work with these guys, it's a dream come true.
Jim, I love talking to voice actors, mostly because the way I always look at it is you're the voice in people's heads. Because,
I'm sorry, I can't talk right now. I'm drawing.
But
how am I doing?
You're doing great.
Okay.
There are no rules here. It's
Okay.
part therapy, part just
Yes, it
imagination. So
Color within the lines.
yeah. No,
fine.
you don't need to. It's up to
No,
you.
it's-
Everything's going in the fridge, so it's
All
fine.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's something special about that. I told people before, but when I think in let's say Bugs Bunny terms, I think it Bell Blanc. That's the voice in my head too. So that's the one thing too. So I want to ask you: is there any specific character out there that maybe that's not yours, but you think in their voice when you hear the voice of certain characters too? Some of the greats.
Oh, gosh. Well, I've got too many voices in my head already. It's getting really crowded in there. So it's basically whoever the last one got the last word in, that's who I'll go from. And thank goodness Taz is not here today, because that wouldn't be fun. That would be a sad state of affairs. But no, they all kind of live in my head anyway, and I just kind of call them up as needed.
Yeah.
Would you like to talk to someone?
Honestly, Darkwing Duck is my favorite.
Excellent. Well, of course, completely understandable, my friend.
Stay dangerous, by the way. Well, I'm glad you. I'm glad.
Well, and that's the thing. I think in your voice,
Yeah.
that's in my head, so I can't hear it in any other way. It's like reading a book, and then after you hear the audiobook, you're like, "That's the voice." Now I have
Yes.
no option beyond that point too.
Right.
I was talking about the greats too, and I talked to Andreas. I know you were talking about the Nine Old Men and all that, the greats out there too. But I look at some of that stuff, and those are the guys who showed up in full suits and ties, came out and like, we're gonna do this, we're gonna put everything down. Like, what's your guys' connection, or is there any story from some of the greats when you met them where you're like, this is their job, they take it so seriously, it's amazing,
Right.
Well, we idolized those guys and still do. And to me, I started in August of 1980 at Disney, and guess what? These guys were still around.
Yeah.
There two had passed away, John Lounsbury and Les Clark, but the others were still around town. And I thought, I just have to meet these guys. I want to talk to them and ask them how they did these things. And I actually did. And once they found out that you were serious with what you wanted to know, they gave you all their time in the world. So that was a big plus, that I was there at that time, and these guys were still around and kicking. It was just, then having them in to come into the studio, give lectures. I remember Ollie Johnston, he said, you guys keep something in mind. You should not animate drawings, you should animate feelings. And I was thinking, like, what is he talking about? Of course you animate, you do drawings, that's what you animate. And then the more I thought about it, always talking about his philosophy, that feelings are first and drawing is really secondary, because you need to feel the character first, because that's what will tell you how to draw. So really profound things you learn from these guys.
Yeah, animators are actors with pencils.
And now you are among them. You are one of them.
Yeah.
Well, now the next
I'm not gonna
generation
call-
will brag about meeting you.
Yeah.
But I repeat that phrase that Ollie told us. It's about feelings. If you are a fanciful draftsman, it doesn't mean you're a good animator. You gotta understand the inner feelings of the character. You really, actually, it's the opposite. If you don't draw maybe quite so well, but you have that understanding of the character, you're going to be a good animator than somebody who draws beautifully but doesn't get the feeling right. The feelings are first.
Well, and that's definitely a thing there too when it comes to all the greats out there who tell the different way, and also the ways they did things too. I mean, John, did you ever run into some of the greats and they tell you, the blood, sweat, and tears they did? You kids have it easy kind of things, I mean, you could do it at home. You don't got to go with like all over it and do all these.
When I started out, I was 12 years old in an animation class in West Covina, California. And I got to know Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnson because they would come out to our animation class and look at our student films. Even the great Chuck Jones supported our program. And just knowing these guys at the level we did and the support that they gave my friends and I credit their support for my success as well as my friends. I have classmates, graduated. They're all in all aspects of the business. So those guys knew, who came before us, that they had to inspire us and teach us to keep this art form alive.
Jim, you have so many voices of positivity and people who fandom. I mean, you look at, you can go to Hondo, you can look at Star Wars, you can look at Winnie, we can look at so many Disney characters as well. What's it like when you meet these people that have essentially grown up with you? And it's because the generational is not something that's easy to say, but very much so.
Oh yeah. Well, I think of it as an honor. I really do. I started off being in plays as a kid, and I always knew that I wanted to do this, and it was because I was affected by the people who went before me, by whether it was Mel Blanc or Dawes Butler, and now when I go to conventions and things like that, I get to see the effect that these characters that I brought to life, that we have brought to life. I get to see how profoundly they were affected, and I've got stories that I've said it before that just put you on your knees, and it's an honor. It is truly an honor to do what I do, and I always joke around. It's the stuff that used to get me kicked out of class, and now I get to hang out with you. So
May I ask,
I
what
need
was
more paper.
you want? Yeah, there's a bunch over there. If someone was to grab two bunch in that box over there. Maybe you can grab some more paper over there too. There's a bunch of blank. No,
Guys on.
just use the back of it. That's fine.
We-
Back of it.
It's been a while. There you go. It's been a while, but it's good.
That's good.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's fine. It's fine. And that's the thing too. That you're going through it too. You know, when did you all find the point where you were like, I'm good at this? You know, because there's a point where you're like, I'm still a rookie. I'm still figuring it out.
still
Or
feel like
you
a
still
rookie.
feel like you're not doing it as well too. So yeah, it's
You know, I was his assistant on Jafar and Scar, and I was really inspired. And I thought at that time I wanted to be an animator because I would just look at the delicate way he drew these characters. But the funny thing was, we would start a scene and he would hand me his rough drawings, right? And they were just so beautiful. And I would study how his line quality. And when he first got into a character, the detail was there in all the faces. Can you imagine the lines of Scar? And very thoughtful. The last drawing was just full of energy, right? And it was funny to me to watch. Every scene was like that. He'd get into it, but then I could see he was drawing with his wrist, but by the last drawing, he was drawing with his arm. So as his assistant, I'd have to follow and copy it so the whole scene would be smooth. And I always felt so lucky because I would be the first one on earth to see these characters come alive. And then it was everyone else got their turn.
And you know, that's a big moment. It's a big moment because when I would work with John on any given scene, and it would take a long time. I would do the key drawings first, then he would do the in-betweens, and then we have what is the thickness of a phone book of a scene. And in those days, we would videotape frame by frame our scenes. We had a camera and one drawing after the other. You have an idea of what you're going to get, but not 100%. It could still be bad. Who knows? And then you push that button to see it move for the first time. And to this day, though, I still get this. Because you just don't know, you know.
Right.
What if it's terrible? And what if it's great? Or maybe there are parts of it that you need to fix. And so it's always that, it's a huge moment when you push the button and you see it for the first time. It's nothing like it.
Now, I know it doesn't happen a lot in animation, but I'd like to ask all of you, actually, has there ever been something you've done, like you animated and put a scene together that essentially got cut, or you did a voice for a character and they said, we're going to go the other way, but I did the whole thing already. Like,
Oh,
you know.
gosh. Yeah. Well, the first movie I was ever in was Roger Rabbit. And they probably cut out 20 minutes of, I was a couple weasels. And I had this great scene, and we were, Bob Hoskins and I were sitting out there in Griffith Park till about 5 a.m. And I thought, I guess it'll be worth it, blah, blah, blah. The whole thing got cut. Nobody saw a word of it, not a frame of it. And we subsequently met afterward, and he goes, well, that was fun, wasn't it? You know, just cut the bloody thing out of the movie.
I was going to ask you that too. If you meet someone with a voice like Bob Hoskins, you have to do it in your head. You have to want to do it.
Yeah, you got to. You got no choice, do you?
How about you for animation?
Yeah, no, same thing. I got some stuff cut also on Who Framed Roger Rabbit. There was a scene with the gorilla, the bouncer from the Campaign Club, and Judge Doom, and then Bob Hoskins had this animated pig head. Remember, there was a whole sequence that we animated, and some of it went through color, and then Zemeckis said, no, that whole thing has to go. So that hurt a little bit, but what really hurt was Lilo and Stitch. I did some of my best subtle work on Lilo when, at the beginning of the film, she has a fight with Nani, her older sister, and then Lilo runs upstairs, and Nani says, go to your room, and Lilo says, I'm already in my room. She smashes the door, and then after a while, Nani goes upstairs, and things have calmed down a little bit, and then in the old version, which I animated, Lilo is telling her sister a bedtime story, not the other way around. And Chris Sanders came up with this amazing story. She's basically talking about herself, and she tells a story as she's combing her doll's hair. She says, once upon a time, there was a bear, and his name was Toaster. Now, Toaster was very sad because he smelled bad. The only friends he had were rocks and fish. So Toaster cried, and One day, a princess heard him cry, and she wanted to send him special soap so he wouldn't smell so bad. But he lives too far away, and he has gotten his soap yet, and she cries herself into the story. So she's talking about herself being an outsider, smelling bad, kind of. I animated that thing with my heart and soul. It was so subtle, because there were all these little shifts in mood and subtle things, and I was very proud of it, and it was even cleaned up by the cleanup crew, tied down, and I took the crew out to lunch because they did a great job. I come back to the studio, and the producer said, we have to talk about that sequence because we had a test screening, and there was one lady who thought that at that moment in the film that Nani was actually Leo's mother. There was a little confusion. I said, one person? We can rewrite that and address that they're sisters. Right. And he said, no, we're going to rewrite that whole thing. They're going to talk about what happened at school earlier and talk about other things. And I was like, oh, man, there was not that stuff yet.
So what person counts for 1 million in the Nielsen ratings, right? That's how that stuff kind of
I'm
works.
still looking for that lady. I'm kidding.
Remember that scene in Cruella de Vil when she was driving? Come on.
That's it.
And that's sometimes when it comes to voice work too. Just like any actor, you come in with your idea of what it should be too hopefully before the director tries to push and poke.
Oh yeah.
Was there anyone before you had an idea that was like this was great and it got changed, or maybe something that got better because they kind of gave you some insight and you changed any of those kind of characters? I mean, some of the ones you've done are beloved too, but...
Oh, yeah. Well, I have a character, one of my favorites, Don Carnage, and he was for Chippendale Rescue Rangers and
Tailspin, yeah.
And boom, boom, ba-dum, ba-dum, bum. And everybody, whenever you have a villain or a classic pirate, they always sound like that from England somewhere. Captain Hook or somebody like that. But I thought that it would be fun if this guy was from Panama or Cuba or somewhere like that. And they thought, okay, who is this again? And Don Carnage, you must roll the R. And we don't have any time to talk about this. I got to be going. I got better things to do than to sit around there. There's a guy going like this. And that was Don Carnage doing Gary.
Yeah.
I always do one as they imagine it should be, and then I do the right one for the second take.
Sure.
And the second take guy wins a lot, so I'm glad to be
Okay,
here.
well, you know what though? That's what an actor does. That's what they hire you. They hire you to create and bring those things together. So I want to thank you so much for coming. And thank you for coming to Comic-Con too. The amount of imagination here is just staggering. And more importantly, the amount of hope and dreams to become all of you is there as well too. Really quickly, if you can just show us some of the things you created or colored too. So you went all board here. So
I feel kind of nervous drawing Scar in front of him.
right.
Yeah, especially when you put these two together.
Oh wow! He's got the animatic.
Wait, I'm going to
ready
make you
go.
both feel great.
There you go. The winner is.
The winner is.
You got a Mickey as well, and you got a.
I was starting.
Oh, look at that.
Wow.
Look at that.
That's amazing.
Jeez, it looks like $1 million.
It is $1 million. Well, that's
I'm over here
almost
finger-
it's $1 billion out after the
finger
box
painting,
office.
that's
so
true.
I want to thank you all for coming in. I hope you have a
Alrighty.
great day. Thank you for coming with us and creating. And
Thank you so much.
we hope to talk to you again about so much more out there. And as you can tell, I love the history of all of this as well.
Oh,
too.
good.
So
Well, yeah, I can give you a hint of where you can find some history on my podcast, Tuned In with Jim Cummings, and we have to go.
I know it's fun because I've actually watched your TikTok as well, and so definitely worth the watch. People, make sure you guys
Thank you.
follow too.
Appreciate that.